Hello, everybody. I'm currently posting this from the White Rock Hotel in Hastings. Um, so I just want to say my YouTube channel is demonetized. I'm quite sure why that is. I think I haven't gone through all the checks. So they kept sending me this email about you got to complete these checks to monetize your channel and get paid. But because I didn't do that, they've now taken away the adverts. So maybe I have to do that. Just wanted to talk about the Magnus Carlsen winning the World Rapid Play. Very impressive. I think Carlsen is an inspiration for chess players of any level. Particularly myself, I'm trying to get better at chess. You're looking at who is an example of somebody who's someone to look up to is Magnus Carlsen. Somebody who's a phenomenal chess player, one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, one of the things that's impressive about Carlsen, I think, he had these great players in the 1980s, 1990s in Karpov and Kasparov. See, before that was Bobby Fischer. So you felt like those guys were just... Garry Kasparov was probably the GOAT, right? He's probably the greatest of all time. But Magnus Carlsen has come along and probably matched, maybe even exceeded his achievements. And coming from a country with a small chess culture in Norway, which really didn't have... the best players before Magnus came along were people like Adjestein, who were good players, 2600, but they weren't anything like that level. Yeah, Magnus is like a level in his own right now. What makes him so dominant? I think there's several factors. I think he's got very good positional understanding. He's very good strategically. There was the famous quote by Spassky about Korchnoi, where he's going on about Korchnoi's gifts. He said, he's the greatest, great opening preparation, hardest worker, phenomenal nerves. But the only problem is he's got absolutely no talent. But you could never say that about Magnus, right? Magnus has obviously got a huge amount of talent. He can play all positions well. That's why he does well at freestyle. You give him any kind of chess position, he's going to play it well. He's just got very good understanding, particularly in the endgame. That's what stands out. When I look at Magnus in the endgame, how he's able to win some of the endgames so fluently, it's very impressive. It's something that I need to aspire to. I need to study the endgame. Maybe I could write a book about Magnus Carlsen's excellence in the endgames. He did write Grind like a grandmaster. However, nobody's really done a comprehensive study of his endgame plays, of his endgames. But he's just on a different level. So he's got all these attributes. He's got phenomenal nerves, very calm. He always sort of like builds up his position calmly. It was the same, in another video. He often plays his king rook to e1 or e8, the first opportunity he gets. This is something that Karpov had in his games as well. Karpov loved to put his rooks on central files. That's something that Magnus has picked up on as well. So he always has great positional understanding. When he played against Turkish kid, Erdogamas, in round 12, I think it was. That was getting a 10 out of 12, which is a phenomenal score. Obviously, he lost to Artemiev. Anyone, you can't win every game in these events. The events are too strong. But Artemiev basically just kind of started making draws. He hasn't got the same experience of winning as Magnus has, so he doesn't have that level of confidence. So he won that game. He should have been kicking on. He probably would have won the tournament, but he started like carving out. But Magnus, he was playing that Turkish kid who's very, very good. Obviously, he's going to be a top player in years to come because he's doing this well now. He's right at the top. Interesting to see how he does in the Blitz. He's right at the top now, and he's only going to get better. He did really, really well. But in that game, Magnus outplayed him positionally. It was like, at some point, I thought White was doing quite well. With a knight on f5. I felt like when Magnus went bishop a6 in that game, I understood maybe his idea was that if White goes bishop c2, that he wants to go bishop c4, bishop e6. I wasn't sure, but I would have tried bishop c2 because with a knight on f5, you're looking for a kingside attack. Black doesn't want to go g6 because of knight h6 check. So I felt like I probably would have punted bishop c2, even though positionally it doesn't look great. He took on a6, so objective position should be close to equal. But it's like an equal where black is the one who's got more to do in that position. White is sort of tied down to the e4's weakness. He never quite solved that weakness. So eventually he got outplayed by Magnus and collapsed in the endgame. In the game against Hans sacrificed a pawn. But I think the problem with Hans is, although he's a talented player, I think he's doing well in this tournament. It'd be interesting to see again how he does in the blitz. He's not as consistent as Magnus. Nobody is. Let's be honest, but he makes a lot more questionable decisions in his games. Where you would say that Magnus makes very few questionable decisions. He makes very few dubious decisions. He's more experienced than Hans. Hans doesn't have the level of experience that Magnus has. He doesn't have a level of confidence or self-belief. He doesn't have the level of knowledge. So he's lacking in those areas. Whether he can make that up over the next few years is questionable in my eyes. But yeah, Magnus wins again. And in the blitz, I think it's very unlikely anyone's going to stop him, to be honest, because he probably just played better in the blitz. Now he's confident from winning the rapid play. If I had to pick someone out for the blitz to maybe surprise people, I'd probably go for Faustino Oro because he does very well online, but objectively he's probably not going to win the tournament. Be interested to see how the younger Indian players play, like Pragananda. And I'd probably, if you put a gun to my head, I would say Pragananda is an upset. Could potentially win that tournament. I'm struggling to see anyone else who's going to beat Magnus. But Prag at Blitz maybe hasn't shown as much as what he could potentially show. So I'm going to go for maybe Prag and Faruja, Sindarov as well, maybe. But yeah, it looks like Magnus could win the Blitz, but it doesn't really matter even if he doesn't, because he's doing a phenomenal weekend. Because he's won the World Rapid. He's won the World Rapid for the 6th time, phenomenal record. He keeps winning all these different titles. And I'm sure he will do so for many years to come. Anyway, please like, comment, subscribe. But it doesn't really matter now because I won't get paid anyway.